Hello, and welcome to a new fanfiction reading. So, uh, I got a new mic. I don't know if it sounds or how different it sounds necessarily, but it, probably sounds at least somewhat different, and maybe, and hopefully it's better in at least some way. Um, I'd still kind of have to figure out what I need to do to make it so everything seems in the right position to me, because no matter what, everything seems a little off and it looks weird, but I guess you probably won't notice. I don't know. Everything just seems weird about this, so whatever. We'll figure it out. So, we have another request here for a new fanfiction to read. And this was, I believe, the last one I got. So last time we looked at some more sort of Velvet and Yang fanfictions. This time we have some Pyrrha and Blake fanfictions, which there actually are some more. There actually are some, whereas with that last one there weren't really. So yeah, let us get into this one, which is Blake's ears and Pyrrha's spears. Which, again, hopefully there's hopefully I can actually read this, but yeah. So, and it's also by HowAreJewDoin. So let's get into it. This mic is very significantly taller than my old one, so it's slightly weird. But anyways, let's begin. Blake twisted her bow nervously as she waited alone in the training room. Pyrrha was late for their practice, which was unusual for her. What if something happened? What if she was attacked? The fauna shook her head, banishing the ridiculous thought. If Pyrrha was attacked, I'd feel bad for the ones dumb enough to do it. Blake's mouth turned upward slightly as she thought of the redhead's skill. A loud bang startled the faunus out of thought and caused her to look upwards. Pyrrha was standing in the doorway and had slammed the door closed. Let's get started, Pyrrha said angrily. Pyrrha, what's wrong? Blake was worried for her friend. We're fighting, not talking, and with that Pyrrha lunged. Blake was hard-pressed to keep the furious girl at bay. Pyrrha was not holding back even the tiniest amount, not even the way people usually do when they spar with friends. The faunus was quickly overwhelmed. She lost her balance slightly while retreating from the onslaught that rained down upon her. Pyrrha took the advantage and struck her in the face with the butt of her spear. A flash of light filled Blake's vision, and she dropped to her knees. Immediately a headache set in. Every sound around her seemed amplified and caused a jolt of pain to run through her skull. Blake, are you alright? Pyrrha dropped down next to the black-haired girl. I'm so sorry. Pyrrha, stop shouting, please. Blake massaged her temple. I'm alright, I just have a headache. No, you probably have a concussion. Sorry, she said quietly, her voice almost a whisper. Maybe we should go see the nurse, just to be safe. Blake nodded in agreement and staggered to her feet. Blake's headache only worsened by the time they reached the nurse's office. Every light was blinding and every sound a cacophony. The creaking of the hinges on the door pierced Blake's ears, and she had to stop herself from crying out in pain. Miss Cam, I think my friend might have a concussion, Pyrrha said to the woman inside the room. The woman in the orange The woman in the orange dress looked up from the desk where she was working. Ah, hello, Pyrrha. Another accident? The redhead nodded. Well, let's have a look-see. The nurse walked over to Blake and began to ask her a few questions. Now, dear, do you feel nauseous at all? No, she said quietly, trying to not aggravate her migraine any further. That's a good sign, at least. Are you feeling tired at all? Blake shook her head slightly. Well, I think she may be all right, but I would like to perform a few tests to make sure. Please follow me, dearie. She walked over to a wall and pressed a small button that neither of the girls noticed before she pressed it. A metal sheet slid out of the wall. Now, if you would lie down here for a moment, I promise this won't hurt at all and isn't invasive in any way. Blake nodded and laid down on the metal sheet. A piece of flexible plastic came straight out of the wall and then curved, sealing the device. Electronic buzzing filled the small compartment, annoying Blake's oversensitive ears. Promptly after the machine had started, it was quiet again. The covering slid back into the wall and was followed by the metal sheet after Blake had pushed herself onto her feet. Good news, you don't have a concussion, just a migraine. I suggest you should rest. You get some rest and take a few of these. The nurse handed Blake a small pill bottle. Come on, let's get you back to your dorm. Pyrrha placed her hand on Blake's shoulder and helped her back to her room. When they returned to the dorm, Pyrrha gently held Blake back from entering. I'll tell them to be quiet and leave you alone for a while. I'll let them know what happened. Blake smiled gratefully, impressed by the redhead's thoughtfulness. Pyrrha went in, and a few moments later, the rest of her team came out. Yang walked up to her and gave her a gentle hug. Ruby did the same when her sister had finished. Weiss flashed her a gentle smile and waited patiently for Ruby. Feel better soon, the blonde whispered before waving and heading to what Blake assumed would be the gym. Blake entered the darkened room, which was now empty except for herself and Pyrrha. Mind if I stay? I want to make sure you're alright. The redhead sat on the edge of Weiss's bunk, across from where Blake had laid down. Not at all. Nephanus whispered. If you don't mind me asking, what's wrong? You weren't yourself earlier. Pyrrha sighed deeply. Jean? 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 He ignores every signal I send him. I think it might be intentional. Pyrrha sighed again and flopped down onto Weiss's bed. Maybe you aren't looking in the right place. What do you mean by that? Pyrrha lifted up her head to look where the outline of Blake was. Have you tried looking at other people than the ones immediately around you? Maybe you should explore some other options. Yes. Only one person has really stood out as a possibility, though. Well, I'm going to get some sleep now. We can fix all your relationship problems in the morning. Blake turned herself towards the wall and pulled the covers over herself. And Pyrrha, thanks. Blake woke up to complete blackness. To her relief, the migraine from earlier had diminished to a dull throbbing. Pyrrha, she whispered into the darkness, hoping she hadn't woken up by herself. The only response was a rustling on the bed above her, signaling Yang had returned and was now asleep. Blake sighed and quietly removed the covers that were wrapped around her. She opened the door as quietly as she could, but despite her best efforts, the squeaky hinges won the day. Blake, where are you going? A whisper came from Weiss's bed. Pyrrha, I thought you left. I just woke up. Blake walked up to the lower bunk and sat down cross-legged in front of the bed. I meant to go back to my room, but I fell asleep. Kind of ended up stealing Weiss's bed. Well, I'm glad you didn't leave. Blake blushed as she realized she had spoken her thoughts out loud. Oh, well, I'm glad I didn't leave either. How are you feeling? You were in pretty rough shape for a while. Pyrrha asked with concern. I'm feeling a lot better. Actually, do you want to go for a walk? Blake hoped she said yes. The faunus had a specific location she wanted to take Pyrrha. She also had a specific question in mind, one that she had promised herself to ask the fighter before the end of the week. Oh, man. Blake, slow down. Or, did I read that? Whatever. Okay, sure, it's kind of late, but the moon is out. Pyrrha slid out of bed and straightened her clothes since she had fallen asleep in them. Good, let's go. Blake led them outside, grabbing Pyrrha's hand and excitedly dragging her along. Blake, slow down, I can hardly see anything. Pyrrha was slightly flustered, an unusual feeling for the confident girl. Are we in the forest? That's the point, and yes. Blake pulled harder and sped up, laughing happily. Where are you taking? Whoa. Pyrrha stopped dead in her tracks as they reached their destination. Around them, the previously dense trees had cleared to form a circle. Inside the circle, the tree trunks glowed slightly, illuminating the area. The clearing was filled with a warm green light, which washed over the array of wildflowers. The array of colors melded together to form a magical feeling. Isn't it beautiful? Blake smiled and released the redhead's hand. The trees are fused with dust, which causes them to glow at night. I found this a couple of weeks back, and I come here as often as I can. Nobody else knows about this. Wow, Blake, this is really incredible. Pyrrha embraced the faunus tightly, causing the other girl to blush. Glad you liked it, Blake replied. It's now or never, Blake thought to herself. Hey, Pyrrha? Blake looked the other girl in her eyes. What is it? Pyrrha looked back, her bright green eyes glowing in the light. Never mind. Blake looked away. You're blowing it. What is it, Blake? You can tell me anything. You know that, right? Blake forced her gaze to return the redhead's eyes. Oh, fuck it, the faunus thought to herself. She placed a hand on Pyrrha's cheek and leant in, closing her eyes as their lips connected. The clearing melted away as Pyrrha returned the show of affection. Blake, that was unexpected, Pyrrha said once the two separated. Sorry, I didn't know what I was thinking. If you want, I'll just leave. Blake turned away, unsure if she had made a mistake. No, don't leave. I was thinking of doing that myself, actually. Pyrrha was the one who looked down at the ground now, embarrassed by her confession. In truth, I've been kind of losing interest for Jean. The closest person other than him to me is you. You always treat me like an equal. It's one of the reasons I started like John. The both of you see me as a person, not some fighting machine. So are we going out now? Blake asked. Yes, I guess we are. Pyrrha burst into laughter, followed soon by Blake. So, think we should head back? The faunus asked once the two had stopped laughing. Maybe we could stay here a little longer. We can head back later. Pyrrha sat down on the ground and... Oh my god. What is with me? Pyrrha sat down on the ground and patted her hand next to her, signaling for Blake to join her. The fauna sat down next to Pyrrha, but she did not stay still for long. She pushed the redhead onto her back and swung herself on top of her. The two were breathing heavily, but said nothing to one another. Blake leant down and kissed Pyrrha's neck lightly, causing the redhead to gasp. Blake, not now. Pyrrha pushed the faunus away. It's too fast. Yeah, you're right. Cuddling okay, though? The faunus asked hopefully. Yes, cuddling is approved. With that, the two wrapped their arms around one another. We are going to head back tonight, are we? Pyrrha said, fighting back a yawn. Doesn't look like, or we aren't going to head back tonight, are we? Doesn't look like it, Blake replied sleepily. The two slipped into a deep sleep, comforted by the presence of their counterpart. So, that is that. Yeah, so I found one more, at least, that should be good. Other than that, I will have to look for a few more if that might be something that we end up, or that I end up, like, looking through. I don't know how to explain it, but, yeah, so I don't know. But that's that for this one. Like I said, there's one more that I found earlier. I might want to do more after that. I don't know, but I'd have to find them because I don't really have any that I know of. Yeah. If you have other suggestions of things or of stories you want me to read, then you can say them in the comments, and hopefully you can be specific and not just do like a ship, because that's kind of difficult to deal with. But you know, I mean, it works, but it takes a lot more effort to find exactly what's good if, you know, nobody tells me like what specific story they want. But anyways, yeah, that's it. Next time we will come back with the story that is next to this one, I guess, sort of. It's this one right here. So yeah, it's pretty obvious. Actually, I think there's like a bunch of stuff in here. So yeah, there's a bunch of stuff in there. So I'll need to actually find something. I didn't really think this through, did I? Anyways, we need to be done. Well, actually, I don't think this was a very long episode, but still, should be done. End the video.